Hi, everyone. I'm Jen Lucas, managing editor of the Knitting Circle and Craftsy contributor, and I want to welcome you to today's live event. In this video, we're going to be talking about knitting this adorable little pumpkin. Isn't it so cute? And it's actually very, very simple. And so this is a pattern that I actually already did a live video for last year in October, because it's perfect for fall. And we wanted to revisit it again because it's the perfect little thing to add to your fall decor. And this time I'm going to show you also some little embellishments that you can add on that I didn't do last time. So I think that this is going to be a really fun project to make. Really, it just takes a couple of hours of knitting to make one of these. It's really very easy. I would consider this to be an adventurous beginner to an intermediate project, but don't let that deter you if you are a brand new knitter, because I'm going to show you every step that you need to know on how to make your own pumpkin. And then you can always come back and rewatch this video later if you're having any trouble with the steps. So before we get started on the actual knitting of this adorable little gourd, I want to remind everybody that there is a link to download the pattern in the description where you're watching the video. So make sure you go ahead and do that. So after you've watched the video, you have the pattern for yourself and you can knit one for yourself. So now that we've talked a little bit about that, I also want to remind everybody about the chat feature that we have going on. So you'll notice a chat box. And in that chat box, you can say hello, let us know where you're watching from, maybe let us know how long you've been knitting, or if you're currently knitting on a project or crocheting or crafting of any kind. While you're watching, we'd love to know. We always like to know what kind of crafts people are working on. And then if you have any questions along the way while I'm working, feel free to drop those in the chat as well, and we will answer those best we can along the way. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to turn my camera down so that you can see my hands and see my knitting, and we will get started. Okay, so first let's talk about the supplies. So we just need a few supplies, just what you could guess: yarn, needles, and a few other little things. So to start, for color A, which is our stem, you just need 2 yards of worsted weight yarn. So really, leftovers from any project are going to work out just great. And then for your actual pumpkin, I have 2 different colors here. I'm going to be using this more gold color today in my demo, but you need 20 yards of worsted weight yarn to do the actual pumpkin. And so you can see mine here. I use this orange, but then we'll be doing this more golden color today. Just keep in mind, you can make your pumpkin any color you want. You can make your pumpkin realistic or not. I think like a rainbow pumpkin would be really cute, but I always want to knit rainbows. So, but really you could do any color pumpkin you want, but you're just going to need 20 yards of that worsted weight yarn. So we're going to use the gold today. The next thing that you're going to need are some double pointed needles or something to knit in the round. In the last live video I did where I knit this pumpkin, I knit it using the double pointed needles. Today, however, I'm going to knit it using the magic loop method, as that is my preferred method for knitting in the round. So if you want to knit yours on double pointed needles and you need a little help on how to do that, I encourage you to go back and check out the video that I did last year of this knitted pumpkin, where it's knitted in the round using the double pointed needles. And then again, today, I'll be showing you how to do it using the magic loop. And we'll drop a link to that previous video in the comment section for you. So you can go back and refer to that video also if you need to. So then in addition to the needles, we're going to need something to stuff our pumpkin with. So I just have some polyfill fiber fill here that I'm going to use, but whatever you like to use to stuff your toys in amigurumi is fine. I just buy this in giant bags from the craft store. So you just need some of this. And then just the normal things. We're going to need a little pair of scissors. We're going to need a tapestry or a yarn needle. Mine's pretty shiny here today because I pulled out the silver metal one, but just your usual tapestry needle or yarn needle. And then also we'll need a single stitch marker just to mark our rounds. And then as far as the beginning yarn goes, the color A for the stem, like I said, you need 2 yards. I mean, and that's really overestimating what you're going to need for that tiny little start. But just keep in mind as we start talking about the vine and the leaf later on in the video, obviously you're going to need additional yarn to make those. So, you know, I had a whole skein of this green, but leftovers are great, but you're going to need a few extra yards if you're going to add this extra stuff on. So we have a few people popping in to say hello. Sherry says that they are learning Portuguese knitting. That's really interesting. I love that. I don't know very much about Portuguese knitting, so I hope that you're having fun working on learning that. And then Deb says hello from Wisconsin, and Deb is a fairly new knitter, started with the 14-day Learn to Knit series and looking forward to keep learning and so excited about the pumpkin. Yes, so Deb is referring to our 14-day Learn to Knit series that I did for the Knitting Circle. So if you are are catching this right now and you don't know anything about knitting at all, but maybe you'd like to learn enough to be able to make this pumpkin, I do encourage you to go check out that 14-day Learn to Knit series because it covers all the very basics you need to know in order to get started with knitting. So let's go ahead now and get started with the pumpkin. So we're going to start with our color A, which is our stem. And we're going to start by casting on 4 stitches. So the type of stitch, the type of cast on that you need isn't really important here. I always just use a long tail cast on because that's just what I pretty much always use for my knitting. But any cast on you like here is going to work just fine. So I have a long tail. I'm not even really estimating how much of a tail I'm going to need here because it's only 4 stitches. And I'm going to do the long tail cast on. My slip knot counts as my first stitch. And then I'm going to cast on 2, 3, and 4. And now if you were, we're going to start doing I-cord. If you were on a double pointed needle, you would slide this to the other end of the double pointed needle to knit it. And you can slide this all the way to the other end of your circular needle for magic loop. But when I'm doing just a tiny bit of I-cord on my circular needle for magic loop, after I cast on my stitches, I have those stitches in my right hand. I'm going to slide the stitches back to the left-hand needle. And I'm doing that purlwise, so I'm not twisting them. I've put my stitch into the needle like I would be purling to slip them back. And now we're going to knit. So we're going to knit 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then slide them back again. So that was round 1. And there's very specific step-by-step instructions in the downloadable pattern that you can get that will show you exactly or tell you exactly how to do this I-cord. And we also have a video on the Knitting Circle for I-cord as well. So we're just knitting our stitches, sliding them back to the left-hand needle, and knitting them again. And that's going to make our I-cord. And I-cord is just this tiny little continuous tube of knitting, which makes it perfect for a stem. And now the pattern calls for a total of 5 rounds of this, and I have not been counting, but let's just do one more. You could obviously just add or subtract however many you like. If you want a longer stem or a shorter stem, well, maybe a shorter stem wouldn't really be worth it, but if you want a longer stem, you can make one. Let's just do one more for fun. That might be 6 rounds, but that's okay, right? Because pumpkin stems are not all uniformly the same anyway. So once you have your 5 rounds or more done of your stem, now we are going to work one more round in this color. And the next round is knit into the front and back 4 times. So the abbreviation for that is KFB, which is knit front and back. So I've put my stitches back over onto my left-hand needle, and now I'm going to knit into the front and back 4 times. So I insert my needle into my stitch, knit. Don't take the stitch off of the left needle. I'm going to come around and go into the back of that stitch and knit it again. So where I've had 1 stitch, now I have 2, and we'll do that again. Knit into the front and back. Knit, keep the stitch on the left needle, bring the right needle around to the back, insert it into that stitch and knit it again. And we'll do that twice more. Okay. So now we've gone from 4 to 8 stitches. And it's a little hard to see here because it's a little tight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's correct. Now I'm ready to start my magic loop and work in the round because we're past the I-cord part. And actually we're done with the green for right now. We will revisit the green when we want to add some embellishments later. And so now to start working in the magic loop method, we need to take half of our stitches and put half our stitches on each side of this needle. So I'm going to count. We have 8, so half of that's 4. That's easy math. So we're going to take 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to slide it onto the cord like this and fold so that I can start pulling the cord up like this, just like this. And now let's just bring it around. I like to first bring it around so I have half my stitches on my front needle and half my stitches on the back needle. And again, we're going to do the magic loop method. And we do have some videos about this on the Knitting Circle if you want to take a closer look at how to do this. If you'd rather knit this with double pointed needles, you can definitely do that. And like I said earlier, the previous video we did about the pumpkin, I did use the double pointed needles, so you can refer back to that one. But I'll give you the basics here. So we have our 4 stitches on the front, 4 stitches on the back. Now to get this into the magic loop configuration, you're going to have 2 loops of your cord on either side. So what we're going to do is slowly pull out that back needle. You can see my cord over on this side getting shorter. So we just want to pull it where we're still leaving a loop over on this side, but now we can bring this needle around to be able to knit with it. And our stitches on the back are just resting on the cord. So it's basically like the cord of your long circular needle is basically a stitch holder for half your stitches while you're working the other half. This particular knitting needle is a 32-inch circular, which is kind of long for this project, but I find I am most comfortable knitting the magic loop method using a 32-inch circular. Some people will use a 24-inch circular for magic loop. It really just comes down to personal opinion on that one and what you like best for your knitting style. So I encourage you to give it a try. And like I said, you can always refer to some of our other videos about magic loop. We have classes on knitting whole projects with magic loop because, well, I really love it. So I always encourage people to try it. But there's lots of ways to knit in the round and none of them are wrong. All of them pretty much, for the most part, will work for this. So we've cut our color A and now we're going to attach our color B. And the instructions, this is our main color. And again, I'm using this gold. We are going to start knitting with our color B and knit all the stitches. So to start knitting with the new color, I can simply just start knitting with the new color. If you're more comfortable, you can hold the tail of your color A together with your new color, your color B for a stitch. Especially because we're going to be attaching these embellishments on, you're really not going to see that they're 2 different colors. So let's go ahead and just do that. That's actually how I like to join my yarn when the yarn's the same color, is I usually knit 1 stitch with both of them held together. We just have to remember that when we come back to this stitch, that is a single stitch. It's not 2 stitches. So now I'm just going to drop that green and we'll just continue knitting. So here we go. We're just knitting. So we've knit those 4 stitches. Now we've run out of stitches. To continue magic loop, we're going to flip it over. Now we're going to pull the cord. So we bring the front stitches, because we flipped it over, the front stitches we're going to put onto that front needle. And now the back, same thing. We're going to pull that back needle out and around like this and knit them again. Knit these. So this is the second half of our round. So now that I've done that, and I've got a little bit of fabric going here. At this point, let's place our stitch marker. So I'm just going to go ahead and stick it into the actual fabric here. You could stick your stitch marker wherever you like, but with magic loop, when my round starts at the beginning of where my needles are changing, I stick it right into the fabric there. You can use your tail to keep track, but I find that's a little bit tricky, especially when you've started with I-cord. It's hard to tell sometimes if the tail's on this side or if it's on this side, but if the stitch marker's over here, we know that's the beginning of our round. Okay, So we're going to continue increasing. So we're going to reset ourselves for magic loop the next round. And I just keep flipping this tail out of the way just so I don't accidentally start knitting with it. And now the next instruction is to knit into the front and back 8 times. So we'll have 16 stitches total. And so again, because when I started with my new yarn, I held my old and my new together, which is optional. But I just wanted to show you that that's one way of doing it if you don't like how loose things are. So we're treating that as one stitch. So I'm going to knit into the front and back, but I'm going to go into both of those strands, knit into the front, bring the needle around to the back, and then knit into the back of that stitch. And you could see even there, you could barely see that little bit of green from that one stitch. And then knit into the front and back all the way around. Let's see. Carrie says, I'm using double pointed needles, so following is a little bit of a challenge, but I'm up for it. Well, Carrie, I'm glad you're here. And like I said, you can always go and refer to our other video where I knit this pumpkin using double pointed needles. If you're finding this part a little bit challenging to watch me use a different method of knitting, we do have that older video for you to go and refer to. And it's really, really great that you're trying this on double pointed needles. Yeah, this project will work great for double points, magic loop. If you like 2 circulars as a method for knitting in the round, that will work too. The only thing you really can't do is use just like one really short circular because our project's too small. And the smallest circular needles I know about are about 8 or I think 9 inches in circumference. Okay, so we knit into the front and back of all of those stitches. And then the next round is just knit all the stitches. So we're just knitting across the front half for the first half of our stitches. And then we'll flip it over. And just flipping those tails out of the way because I don't know about you, I always end up knitting with them accidentally. And now we're on the second half of our stitches. So let's go ahead and knit those as well. So that takes care of the first couple of rounds. And now I'm going to just show you one more of the increase rounds here because we are going to use a different kind of increase. We're going to still use the knit front and back, but we're also going to start using another one. So let's take a look at how to do that. And for the next round, flipping back over. Oh, excuse me. The next round, we still are just doing knit front and back. It's the round after that. We're going to do the other increase. So let's do all of that so we can get to the next increase. So the next round, we're going to knit one, knit into the front and back, and do that all the way around. So knit one, knit into the front and back, knit one, knit into the front and back, knit one, you guessed it, knit into the front and back. That's half our stitches. Flip it over. Front needle. Get the stitches on the front needle here. Pull the back needle out and around to start knitting the second half, where we're going to knit one, knit into the front and back, and just keep doing that for the rest of the round. Okay. So the next round, now we're going to start incorporating some purls. And so let's do that. Let's do 2 more rounds of this, and then we will talk about the actual body of the pumpkin. So for this next round, we're going to knit 2, purl 1. So I have the yarn in the back to knit. So we're going to knit 2, 1, 2, and then to purl, we're going to bring the yarn in between the needles to the front to purl, bring the yarn to the back, and continue. So we're going to knit 2, purl 1 all the way around. Okay, Shane says, great tutorial. Oh, thank you, Shane. Would you address making a larger pumpkin with the same pattern? Absolutely, and that was something I was planning on discussing. So yes, you can make your pumpkin bigger if you like. The way the pattern is written is such that the circumference of the pumpkin would stay the same. You could just easily increase the length here. So pretty soon we'll be to a point where we're going to just knit 5, purl 2 for a total of 14 rounds. And so you could obviously increase that to make like a chunkier pumpkin. If you wanted to make your actual pumpkin like bigger, make the circumference of it bigger, you will have to continue doing some extra increases, which then will affect what your ribbing is going to look like. But you could absolutely add in some more increases. If I was going to do that, I would probably add some more make ones into the section where I have the knit stitches like I have here. And so then like maybe you would increase until you have something like 7 stitches of knit, and then you still just leave the 2 stitches of purl. But let's talk about that a little bit more as we finish up some of these increases, and I can show you what I mean. So we're still on our knit 2, purl 1 on the second half of these stitches. So knit 2, purl 1, and we're going to finish the round with that. And now on the next round, we're going to do some make ones, and this make one is something that you might use if you are going to increase the circumference of your pumpkin. And again, obviously, I know that you know this, but just remember that if you change the size of your pumpkin, that it is going to require more yarn. So just keep that in mind. But obviously, a skein like this has almost 200 yards in it at starting. So you have more than enough to make whatever size pumpkin you want. Okay, so the next round, we're gonna do both a knit front and back and a make one. So for the next round, we're gonna knit 1 and then make 1. So to make 1, we are going to pick up the strand in between the 2 stitches. So this strand right here, this is the one that's in between the stitch you just knit and the stitch you're about to knit. We're gonna pick it up from front to back and then knit it into the back of it. Just like that. So see, we've created this little extra twist here, this extra stitch. So that's the make 1. So knit 1, make 1, knit front and back. And then purl 1. So we're going to knit 1, make 1 by taking our left needle from front to back in that strand in between the 2 stitches. Oh, I split the yarn a little bit there. Let's fix that. A little bit splitty. Here we go. And knit into the back. Knit front and back, purl 1. So as you're working this, you can, if you take a look at the pattern, you'll be able to see that we're increasing every other row. So if you want to increase the circumference of your pumpkin, you would do this here before you start that straight knitting where we're going to be doing the knit 5, purl 2. There is a round in the pattern where we're basically doing a knit 1, make 1, knit 1, make 1, knit 1. And then that gets us to our 5 stitches in between, or our 5 knit stitches in a row. So you could then just work a plain round of knit 5, purl 2, and then maybe work another increase round where in that, where those 5 stitches are, maybe you do something like knit 1, make 1, knit 3, make 1, knit 1, and that would give you 7 stitches of knit stitches in a row. And then you could keep increasing like that to change the size of your pumpkin. You're just going to have to remember that you're going to have to accommodate for those increases at the end when we talk about the decreases, but that's no big deal. You could just work an extra few rounds of decreases sort of in the similar manner. So hopefully that helps you, Shane, in how you can adjust the pattern. And if you do adjust the pattern, please tag us on social media because we'd love to see it. Okay, so you'll just keep working the increase rounds as written. until you have the number of stitches you need, as well as all the increases are complete. So you would just keep following the pattern, but those are all the increases that you're going to need for that. At that point, you're going to just start working knit 5, purl 2, ribbing, basically, because it is a rib pattern. And you're going to do that for a total of 14 rounds. So you end up with something that looks like this. So let's go ahead and I'll just add one more round to this. I already did the 14 rounds, but let's just add one more. You can see here, I think that this must be a 24-inch circular. Look at my loops are a lot smaller. So I guess I just accidentally grabbed a 24-inch when I was working this one. So you could see that I have a lot less loop to work with, which is fine. I can definitely do my magic loop with the smaller amount of loops. This just feels a little bit more natural to me to have the longer cord, but obviously either one works because I'm going to use the shorter one on this one. Let's see, Anna says, I'm using double points as well. Haven't gotten the hang of magic loop yet. Yes. Magic loop is one of those things that is tricky to learn for some people. It was tricky for me to learn. I was extremely resistant to magic loop for a long time. So I just am saying that to let you know that I do feel your pain, that it is something that can be a little bit tricky to learn. Like I said, we do have, if you are interested in pursuing magic loop as a way to knit in the round, especially if you like to knit socks. For me, it's personally faster. I know that's not true for everybody. We do have some videos on magic loop. I have a class on knitting socks with magic loop, but for that particular class, the same would apply for knitting socks as knitting a pumpkin as knitting a hat. It's just in that class, I happen to be doing socks magic loop. So lots of ways that you can learn how to do magic loop. But I'm really interested and so happy that so many of you are here and watching and maybe picking up a little magic loop tricks for the future. Let's see, I did not have a stitch marker in this one. I think I'm back at the beginning of the round. Let's stick a stitch marker in here. Okay, so once you have your rounds of your knit 5, purl 2 done, we are going to start our decreases. And just remember, this is again, where if you want a deeper pumpkin, so you want this to be bigger here, you would work additional rounds of that knit 5, purl 2. Okay, so for our decreases, we're going to start off by doing, let's see here, let me just check my pattern. I want to make sure I'm giving you the right information. Okay, yes, I am. Okay, so we're going to start off with a slip slip knit. So to do a slip slip knit, we're going to take two stitches and decrease it down into a single stitch. So we're going to slip as if to knit, slip as if to knit, insert our left needle through those stitches so that we can knit them together through the back loop. That's an SSK. We're going to knit 1, then we knit 2 together. That's easy. We're literally just knitting the next 2 stitches together. So going into the next 2 stitches from left to right together, we're going to knit those together. Then we're bringing the yarn to the front because the next step is to purl 2 together. So it's the exact same thing as the knit 2 together, except we're purling. So we're going to insert our right needle into the next 2 stitches like we're going to purl, and we're purling them together. And so here where we had the knit 5, now we have 3 knit stitches because we did an SSK, a knit 1, a knit 2 together. And where we had 2 purl stitches, we now have 1 because we did a purl 2 together. So you can see that we're starting to decrease. It's also at this point, and maybe even before you start these decreases, and this is in the pattern, you might want to take a minute and just weave in your ends on the inside, which I already did. So where you changed from your green to whatever the main color of your pumpkin is, you are going to have some ends. Where's my other one? Here we go. So you can see where we've started this one. I have these ends here, right? From where I ended my green and attached my gold. Because the pumpkin is going to be stuffed, you don't have to, take great care to weave these in, but you do want to do a little bit of something to weave them in, because you don't want your stitch out here to get real loose and start to come out. So you can just weave in your ends like you normally would. And I'll show you on this one how to weave in the top at the end. But you just want to do a little bit of weaving in here, and it's easier to do it now while you still have a pretty big hole, versus once we keep decreasing and then you have a tiny hole and then you got to turn the whole thing inside out to weave in the ends. And you don't have to, on this one, I did cut the yarn close, but because this pumpkin's going to be stuffed, you don't even have to really even worry about trimming the ends after you've woven them in. And I'm also someone that doesn't typically put knots in my knitting, but I will never tell you not to put a knot in your knitting because it's your knitting. And if you put knots in your knitting, that's fine. I don't care what you do. So you might even find you might want to like weave in the end a little bit and then tie a knot and then just trim the ends and leave them hanging out. That's fine. I just put my ends in like I normally do. So that was a really long-winded way of saying weave in your ends on the inside at this point. Okay, so we're going to continue. We're going to do another slip, slip, knit, slip, slip, knit, knit one, knit two together, bring the yarn to the front, purl two together. So we're just going to keep doing that all the way around. Slip, slip, knit, knit one, knit two together, bring the yarn to the front to purl two together. That takes care of our first half. Now we'll come around and do our second half. And you can see with the shorter loop here, or with the shorter circular needle, you can see how teeny tiny this loop gets here. So you just want to be careful that you're not pulling this all the way, which really you'll just need to pull it back out. It's not that big of a deal, but need to do a slip, slip, knit, slip, slip, knit, knit one, knit two together, and then purl two together. Okay, and slip, slip, knit, knit one, knit two together, and purl two together. We have one more set of that to do. For the next round, we're just going to do a knit three, purl one all the way around. So we'll just finish this up and then work that all the way around. Don't forget, if you have any questions along the way, don't forget to drop them in the chat box. And also, if you haven't done so already, we do have a link to the pattern in the description for the video where you're watching. So make sure to go ahead and grab the pattern so you can make one for yourself. So again, now we're on to the next round, round 24, which is knit three, purl one. After this, we just have two more rounds to go, and then we can start talking about little embellishments that we can add on. So as far as the embellishments go, yes, I made mine with yarn, and I'll show you how I did that. But keep in mind that if you're somebody that likes to frequent the craft stores or the craft section of a, big box store or something like that, don't forget, you don't have to necessarily add the vines and leaves using yarn. You can find lots of store-bought things that you can add. Brenda KB Anderson, who works on the Creative Crochet Corner and also on Craftsy, she's done a pumpkin pattern where she suggests using a cinnamon stick instead of the stem. So you could even incorporate a cinnamon stick into your pumpkin if you like. I thought that was a really cool idea as well. So, there's lots of different things you can do and lots of different yarns too. You don't necessarily have to choose like a smooth yarn like this. I think if you, you could choose a yarn that has a little bit of sparkle in it or something. It might look really, really cool. Let's see. Shane says, this is my first time to observe magic loop. It appears that you have less of a chance of the stitches dropping if setting it down versus the double pointed. Well, Shane, you are correct. That is kind of the main reason I got into magic loop and why I wanted to learn it, is because you only have these two ends that your stitches can fall off of versus your double pointed needles, where depending on if you're using 3 and knitting with a 4th, or 4 and knitting with a 5th, you've got 6 to 8 points that your stitches can fall off of. So I personally like this better because I'm always joking in these videos how I'm kind of like a lazy knitter. And so I would probably take this and just throw it into my knitting bag, you know? So yeah, there's much less of a chance too. And then I also like, I'll just show you because I do have some of my notions over here. You can just get these at the big box craft store or your local yarn store, or probably online too. These particular point protectors, and they do come in different sizes. I do like them for the magic loop because you can put your stitches both on the cord like this, and then just use this point protector, and look at your stitches are not going to fall off. So that's really nice too. So that's one of the reasons I like Magic Loop as well, because I'm always just throwing my knitting down wherever and then end up having to put my stitches back on the needle. So yes, that's part of the reason I think that this is a great method. Okay, so let's work our last 2 rounds here. So round 25, we need to do an SK2P, which is a slip 1, knit 2 together, pass the slip stitch over. Now, I learned how to do the slip 1, knit 2 together, pass the slip stitch over, slipping the first stitch purlwise. Some people slip that first stitch knitwise, as if you're going to knit. Both are valid, both are fine. Just be consistent which way you do it. This is the bottom of the pumpkin. I'm just going to do it my normal way and slip 1 as if to purl, knit 2 together, pass the slip stitch over. Bring the yarn to the front and purl 1. So slip 1, knit 2 stitches together, pass the slip stitch over. So this is a double decrease, and this double decrease takes 3 stitches and turns it into a single stitch. If you don't like that particular decrease, you could also just do a knit 3 together here. So you could go into all 3 of the stitches this way. But you can see that's a little tight. We're knitting at a tighter gauge than we normally do for worsted weight yarn. So I find the knit 3 together, it's like I'm kind of struggling to get my needle in there because I'm trying to get into all 3 of those stitches. So I find that slip 1, knit 2 together, pass the slip stitch over, works a little bit better for me. But again, if you like a knit 3 together and you're not having any problem getting your needle into your stitches, go for it. Chris says, how about using thicker yarn and bigger needles to make a bigger pumpkin? Chris, that's an excellent, excellent idea. Yes, we are using worsted weight yarn here. So, well, it's literally called medium weight. So this is a medium yarn as far as thickness goes of yarn. So you absolutely could use a bigger yarn, bigger needles. Just keep in mind that, for example, for this yarn, the needle size recommended on the ball band was a US size 7. And I'm using a US size 5 here. And I'm a pretty loose knitter. I probably could have even done this on a US size 4. So just keep in mind, if you're going to choose that bulky weight or even super bulky, imagine that giant pumpkin, you are going to want to most likely go down a needle size or 2, or maybe even 3 if you're a loose knitter, because you want that fabric to be tight enough that you're not getting a bunch of the polyfill coming out. I mean, you can even see here, if you really look up close, you can see a little bit of my polyfill come, like it's not poking through, but if you take a close look, you can see it there. So you just want to keep that in mind. The gauge still does need to be tight. Let's see. Oh, Susan says, I love my circular needles for knitting also. They make stopping so much safer. Yes, I absolutely agree. And now I'm just on my last round here, round 26, and I'm just doing a knit 1, purl 1 all the way around. And then we are done with the knitting of the pumpkin, and then we can start talking about the finishing and some of these other extra embellishments that I'm going to show you today. So we're just doing knit 1, purl 1 all the way around. And then we'll be ready to stuff our pumpkin and finish it up. So here we go. Just a few more stitches. So at this point, once we're done, we're going to cut the yarn, leaving a tail. And in the pattern, I said that you're going to want to leave a tail of at least 12 inches or 30.5 centimeters. You know, I'm not getting out my tape measure to measure this or anything, but you do want to make sure that you have a pretty long tail, because not only are we going to close this up now, but we're also going to use that tail to shape our pumpkin. So longer tail is better than a shorter tail here. So let's just go ahead and trim that and set that off to the side. And then I have my shiny tapestry needle here. So I just like to fold it in half the yarn over the eye and then poke it through like that. So it's all threaded onto our yarn needle. So we have our yarn on our yarn needle. So I am first, and this is kind of one of those personal preference things. So I'm going to slip all of my stitches off of my knitting needles onto the tapestry needle and then onto the yarn, just to get my knitting needle completely out of the way before I start stuffing. So I have a tendency to slip a whole bunch of stitches onto the yarn needle, and you'll notice I'm doing that purlwise. So I'm inserting the needle, the tapestry needle, into the stitch like I'm going to purl. Moment of truth now. And then I'm going to just start pulling that yarn through. So it's not going to unravel. I mean, it's hard to see because the yarn's the same color, but it's not going to unravel because that tail has gone through those stitches. So if you've knit a hat before, then you know this technique. It's basically like finishing up the top of a hat where you're just sliding all the stitches onto the tapestry needle, and then ultimately we'll pull tight to close. So again, I tend to do a bunch at once, but you do it however you like. Okay. So now we have our knitting needle. We can set that out of the way for a while. So we're left with this. We're going to leave our yarn on the tapestry needle, but now we need to stuff this. At this point, if you have not woven in those ends or taken care of any ends on the inside, you'll want to do that. And we can also take care of this other end now or later. We'll just do it later because I'm already on this little part here. So, okay. So we're going to take our fiber fill. I can't really tell you exactly how much you're going to need because it's going to depend on the gauge of your pumpkin. The gauge is listed in the pattern. Again, you know that we want that fabric to be tight, but I also know nobody's probably going to do a gauge swatch before they start their pumpkin. So, you know, you need about a handful, I guess, a large handful of fiber fill, but you might find you need more or less depending on how chunky you want your pumpkin. So I'm just going to start stuffing it. And so I like to just take a little bit at a time, and I kind of, just so that it's not so chunky, like there aren't big clumps. I try to pull it apart, put a little air into it. And sometimes you put more in, sometimes you end up taking some out. It's more of an art than a science when it comes to this kind of finishing for your knitting project. So we can start to pull this closed, and we'll see if we want to take any out. Well, that seems fine. So you can see at this point, this even looks really cute. Here I've cinched it up, which I'm going to show you how to do. But you can see, even if you don't cinch up your pumpkin to make it like more squished and more like those little gourds, this is cute even just like this, I think. And you would just weave in this end at this point. But I kind of like this where it kind of cinches in the center like that. And so it really does look like those little gourds I always want to buy at the grocery store this time of year. So to do that, we're going to take this end, and this is why you need that longer tail. I'm just going to take this end, and I'm going to take my tapestry needle through the bottom and up to the top. And then I'm going to come up the top near the stem, but I want to come in where the yarn is the gold or whatever the main color of your pumpkin. And I'm just going to pull it. And I'm going to pull it tight. See how I pulled it tight and it's starting to cinch it? So I'm going to pinch it now and go back down. So it's almost just like I'm just really weaving the yarn back and forth and just pulling it as tight as I can as I go through. So I'm pulling it up and we're pulling it really tight. Now I'll go down, and I'm not being super exact because you really can't see it. but you know, I basically go more or less one stitch over and back down and pull tight. And you could do this as many times as you want until usually I just kind of go around the stem one time just so it's even. But keep in mind, like I said at the beginning about our stem, not every pumpkin looks the same in the world. So maybe, you know, you don't want to make every single pumpkin be universally the same, you know. Maybe some you don't want to do this step. So you have that sort of more just like larger natural pumpkin. You know, it's really up to you. Think about like, well, even if you pumpkin pick now, I haven't gone pumpkin picking in a long time, but think about when you would come home from pumpkin picking with your family, if that's something that you ever did, and everybody has a pumpkin that looks different. So don't worry if your pumpkin doesn't look exactly like mine, it's perfect the way it is. So there we go. So that's looking pretty good. Maybe one more over here could be a little tighter. Again, remember, some of this really is an art versus a science. So you know, don't be afraid to go around a second time if you're not happy with it. And then we can also sort of squish our pumpkin so we can get, you know, some of that fiber fill redistributed how we want. So there we go. We have this little pumpkin. And you can see this one I might have pulled a little bit tighter. I feel like this one looks a little bit thinner, but again, that's totally fine. So now we need to weave in this end. So this fell off my tapestry needle. I'll just stick it back on. So to weave in this end, really all I need to do at this point is I'm just sticking the tapestry needle into the pumpkin and then just out the side. It doesn't really matter where. And then we can get rid of our tapestry needle. And now I'm going to squish my pumpkin and pull this tail tight and be really careful. Don't cut your actual knitting. You'll be very sad if you do. We're going to cut, and then because we pulled tight, just kind of squish it. And look, that tail now is just hidden right inside. And so if you're somebody that also makes toys or crochets toys, that's always how I finish my ends on any kind of toy. I just take it through the middle out and then pull it tight and trim it close to the fabric. And then it just right inside. So now we can do this other tail too, which maybe I should have done earlier, but we're doing it now. And so the I-cord, there is a little bit of a hole here because we did join in the round. I do like to just kind of go over this with like a little like whip stitch. So I'm just going over the top, but you don't have to do that. This is, again, more of an art than a science, but I did kind of like it when I closed that hole up just a little bit. And then same thing. You can use this tail. Like if we have this little loop of yarn here, we're not really crazy about. I'm just going to grab it, pull it tight. That looks a little better to me. And then same thing with this tail. We can just stick it through the stem, and then I do this one out through the bottom. So nobody's going to see the bottom of this anyway. Pull it tight and trim. Give it a little tug. There we go. Came out up here a little bit, so I'm just going to trim that again. There we go. So there's our little pumpkin. Isn't it cute? But we can make it cuter, I think, by adding a few little things. So let's talk about it. Before I do that, we have a question from Carrie. And Carrie says, how about stuffing these with dried beans or rice to use as door stoppers? Yes, that absolutely would work. If that's what you want to stuff your pumpkin with, you definitely can. If you're worried, if you're using something really small and you're worried about it poking out through your knitting, because obviously knitting, it's fabrics, and like it's, even though it's tight, like it still has like holes because it's knitting, right? So one thing you can also do is put your stuffing, whatever it may be, into some old like pantyhose or nylons, and stuff the stuffing into the nylon, and then tie that off and stuff it in, and that kind of holds all your stuffing together, I guess, so that you wouldn't have like little bits poking out. So that's an option for you too. But yes, you can stuff it with whatever you like. For example, with cross stitch projects, like with pin pillows and stuff, a lot of times they stuff their projects, like little pillows with lizard litter, because it's crushed walnuts, I think, or crushed walnut shells. And so, yeah, there's lots of things you can stuff these with for sure. Okay, so we have our pumpkin now. Let's make some little embellishments. So let's start off by knitting a vine here. And there's no real pattern for this. You can just do it however you like. So let's do the vine like I have here first. And so what we're going to do is cast on some stitches and then very quickly increase. So for this size pumpkin, if you're following the pattern, you can just cast on, I don't know, 12 stitches, 14, 16. It just depends on how long you want your vine. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now to get the vine, you know, because the vines on the pumpkins, they have those little vines that are real curly. So to get this to be curly, we need to very rapidly increase. So we have 12 stitches here. So I like to increase now 3 stitches into each stitch. So we could do that a variety of ways. For example, we could knit into the front and into the back. We've already done that. But we could do knit front, back, and then, oh, look at this, go into the front again. So now we've done knit front, back, front. And so we took 1 stitch and made 3. So let's look at that again. Knit, let me move this out of the way. It might be easier to see. Knit front, bring the yarn to the back, knit into the back, come around again to the front and knit into the front. So that's one way. You could do what I did for this one. I did knit, leave the stitch on the left needle, yarn over, and knit that stitch again. That does make a little bit of a hole, but it's also a little, I think, a little bit easier. So you just want to do some kind of very rapid increasing. So I would say knit front, back, front, or knit yarn over knit. So let's just do some more of these. I'm just putting both in here, right? We could pretend like one of those bugs or beetles ate some of our vine. Okay. So now we're just finishing this off by doing some of our rapid increasing. And once we've done that, we're going to immediately bind off. And so that's what allows the corkscrew action to happen, is that we have quickly increased. So we started with 12 stitches. So that was only this much fabric. But then when you add all those stitches, that next row is going to be much, much wider because we added so many stitches. Well, we're not going to do any more knitting to try to get that to flatten out. We're just going to bind off. And so that's what's going to cause it to make that little corkscrew. So I'm just doing a regular bind off. I'm just knitting 2 stitches. When I have 2 stitches on the right needle, I'm passing the first one over the second. So then knit 1 more and pass. And we're just going to do that all the way down until all of them are bound off. And you will see as we're binding off, things are going to start sort of curling up on themselves. This is one of those things where it might not come out looking like a perfect little corkscrew. But we can shape it a little bit if we need to. Let's see. Chris says for a skinny vine, you could cast on 1 row tightly and then bind off tightly. Yes, there are lots of ways that you could do that. That would be a great suggestion as well. If you just do a tight bunch of knitting, you could also get this effect as well. Yeah, lots of things you can do. If we have time, I'll even, we're kind of coming close to the end of our time here, but I can show you how to crochet one as well. And even if you don't crochet, it's easy enough that even a non-crocheter can crochet one. Let's see. Okay. Anna says, but if Okay, I didn't catch it, but if you want the circumference larger, do you repeat rounds 6 and 7 or rounds 8 and 9? So let me look, let me just scroll on my screen here, back up to my pattern here. So I would repeat, okay, so it's not exactly repeating round 8 because round 8 is taking your K3P2 and turning it into a K5P2. But what you could do is you could do, I mean, you basically kind of can. You could do a knit one, make one, knit until there's one stitch left of that section, and then make one, knit one. And then that would make 7 stitches in that area, and you would still have your purl 2. And then if you still wanted to make it bigger, you could do another round of knit one, make one, knit until there's one stitch left of that section, and then make one, knit one. So then you would have 9 stitches of knit and you'd still have your purl 2. I mean, you could even just add in random increases. And then, you know, the main thing is that I have this knit 5, purl 2 patterning. So you just need to decide. You can make the knits wider and add some more make ones in there every other row, and then keep it at purl 2. I mean, you could add a make one in the purls to make this wider, but yeah, you would just keep doing increases, do like 2 make ones. So that's sort of like repeating round 8, but not exactly. But in each little knit section, just add 2 make ones in there. Oh, Shane says, or add some floral wire to shape it perfectly. Yes, you know, I was at the craft store the other day and didn't buy any, and I should have, because that's a great idea. Okay, so we're done, and we have this little bit of, and it doesn't exactly, you know, look like a corkscrew, but we could even just take our knitting needle. So you can just take your knitting needle, pencil, crochet hook, anything like that, and just wrap it around like this. I might even get out my iron and steam it. I would not touch knitting to my iron though. This is wool yarn, but especially if you're using acrylic, it will melt. So yeah, I could just wrap it around my little, my knitting needle, and now I've made it into a corkscrew. I would just weave in this end, or I'd probably weave in this end because it's shorter, and then use this longer one to just tack it on. I would just whip stitch it on just like that. So let's talk about the leaf. I won't necessarily sit here and knit it, but I'm going to tell you how I did it. So what I did for the leaf is I cast on 4 stitches and then knit a couple rows. Then I had 2 rows where I increased on the side. So actually, maybe I am going to knit this first part for you so you can see. So again, we're going to just start with that slip knot. And this is one of those things. I just did this morning. I looked up a picture of a pumpkin leaf and I was like, okay, you know, my pumpkins are really small, so maybe I can't exactly, you know, with worsted weight yarn and that giant pumpkin leaf, you know, maybe I'm not going to make an exact pumpkin leaf, but I can make something like a pumpkin leaf. So I cast on 4 stitches. Now let's just knit a couple rows. Let's see. Oh, Lauren says you could use a real pumpkin stem. I have used real pumpkin stems in many of my crocheted pumpkins. That's something I never thought of before. That's a really good idea. I might have to try that. Okay, so I have my 4 stitches and I've just knit a couple rows. Then I did some increasing by casting on 3 extra stitches over here. So I do a knit 1, and then rather than taking this stitch off, I take the stitch on my right needle and stick it back on my left needle. So that's a knitted cast on. That's 1, 2, and 3. Now I don't turn my work, and I'm going to knit all those stitches. So I had 4, now I have 7. Then I'm going to flip it over again and do the same thing on this side. 1, 2, and 3. Don't turn, and knit all the stitches. So I worked a few rows back and forth with my 10 stitches, And then I slowly started decreasing using SSKs and knit two togethers, just like we used at the bottom of our pumpkin. And I just decreased after I worked a few rows back and forth like this. I just slowly started decreasing to make my leaf. And actually I recently did a video for the Knitting Circle on a fall garland, which had different types of leaves. So you can even go and take a look at that pattern and get some leaf inspiration off of there. But same thing, I just left a tail and then I whip stitched it on. And then real quickly, we're pretty much at time, but I just very, very quickly would like to show you doing a crochet vine if you do crochet or you are interested in it. So you're just going to need a hook size close to what you used for your pumpkin. And we're going to just start with the slip knot. And all we're going to do is start with the chain. So we're going to yarn over from back to front, pull a loop through. So that's 1, yarn over, pull a loop through. That's 2. Let's do 12. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And then let's just do one more because we'll use one as sort of our turning chain. So now we have this chain and we're going to single crochet into each one. You can either crochet into the bottom of the chain or the side. When I'm doing something like this, I don't really worry about crocheting into the bottom of the chain, which is what I usually do for my projects. Here, let's just pick up one of these strands on the side. So think about this. If you don't crochet, kind of think about this like these are stitches on your needle. So you pretend this crochet hook's your knitting needle. You're just going to go under this strand here, wrap the yarn around, pull up a loop, and then wrap around again and pull through 2. That's 1 single crochet. And then just go into that same hole 2 more times. 1, 2, and single crochet into that stitch. So we're doing the same thing, but in crochet, and we're putting 3 single crochets into each one of those chains. And that also makes a corkscrew. So I find this a little bit faster, and again, I can be a lazy knitter sometimes. So I might go with the fastest option, which is crochet. And if you do want to know specifics about crocheting a corkscrew, we have a video on our sister site, Creative Crochet Corner, that will show you exactly how to do it. And it is a free video over there. So you could always go check that out. But you can already see, I'm not going to do this whole thing, but you can already see here, I haven't even finished my crochet chain and look how it's already curling up on itself. So then you would just do the same thing. You would weave in one end, use the other end to attach the pumpkin. So that is knitting a crochet, or that's knitting a mini pumpkin. So I really hope that you enjoyed this and that you learned a lot. Again, if you haven't tried Magic Loop before, I really encourage you to try it. This is the perfect little project to really try it on because you're not going to have much time invested into this little guy, versus trying Magic Loop with a sock or something. And it takes, I don't know, 8 to 12 hours to knit a sock or something like that. So this is a great little project to try Magic Loop. But if you do, like I said, throughout the video, if you do want to see me knit it using the double pointed needles, make sure you go check out that other video where I knit this little pumpkin. And thank you so much for joining me today. This was a really great discussion. Everybody asked lots of great questions. I love chatting with you about the projects I'm working on, and I love hearing from you. So thank you so much for engaging with me today. And if you do decide to make one of our pumpkins, please let us know. You can tag us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, or even on TikTok. So make sure to track us down on social media and give us that tag so that we can like your post. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, I'm Jen Lucas, managing editor of the Knitting Circle and Craftsy contributor. And I hope that you have lots of fun knitting your pumpkin. I'll see you next time. Bye.